Whether this is your first, second, or third film, one of the most important parts of pre-production is casting. But how do you cast your own movie? What's up friends, the Nerdy Filmmaker here, and today we've got a nice big video all about doing your own casting. So this is not if you're hiring a casting director. A lot of the times we don't have a budget for that in smaller indie movies. So I'm gonna share with you all the steps that we take when casting our own indie projects. So I've broken down this video into 4 sections. There's preparing for your audition, reaching out for your audition, the actual audition day, and then making your choices. So one of the first things you need to decide when you're preparing your auditions is, are you working with union actors or not? Because this might instill a whole new set of rules for your auditions. Here in Canada, we've got ACTRA. I am a member of ACTRA. I always audition ACTRA members. And it's not necessarily any kind of restrictions when I'm auditioning that inhibit how I would normally do my auditions. A lot of the requirements are kind of common sense and best practices to get good performances out of your actors, such as sending them their scripts or sides with enough time for them to actually rehearse and learn their scenes, as well as just having something like a sign-in sheet there so that you can monitor who's coming in and out, how long they've been there. And as a quick note to that, when you are auditioning union, and this is again specifically for ACTRA because I don't know the SAG-AFTRA requirements, the first audition is free. So it's really just for callbacks when you are starting to pay a nominal amount for them to continue auditioning for you. I believe it's $50. The second thing you want to decide is if you are going to be doing these auditions in person, or you're going to be doing them as self-tapes. Self-tapes became a lot more popular post-pandemic, or post-lockdowns, I should say. But at the same time, a lot of actors, including myself, prefer being in the room and getting direction from someone live. You might decide, let's say you want your first round of auditions to be just self-tapes and then the callbacks to be in person, or you want them to be in person right off the bat, or you can have it as a mix. Whoever wants to come in can come in, whoever wants to record and send it to you, do that too. You really just have to know that you have the infrastructure to handle both emailed auditions and in-person auditions. Now, the next 2 steps in preparation are the 2 documents, really, that you're gonna need to send out to actors and their agents. Let me get the first one. So the first piece of paper that you really should have prepared is what's called a casting breakdown. Sometimes people put these within the bodies of the email, or they put them in the description of a Facebook post, but I always find it, one, to be a lot more easily formattable when it's as a PDF, but also it just looks a lot more professional. So let me show you one that we've done here. This is for a recent project that we did called Comedium. It was just a teaser video. So basically this was a casting breakdown that we were doing just for a trailer, a proof of concept trailer. If you're interested, you can see it on the Bean Duck YouTube channel. A casting breakdown has all the information in a PDF that the actor and the agent needs to know about whether or not they want to audition for this project, and then descriptions on the roles that they are auditioning for. So for example, first off up here, we have the project name, the format, so this is a web series, trailer video, maybe it's a short film, maybe it's a feature film. Union, is it a union project or not? So we are accepting ACTRA and ACTRA apprentice members, which are ACTRA newbies. This is not a non-union project. If it was non-union, you'd put that there. I put their rates, their daily rates. I blacked that out so you can't see it. I also over here have information on the production company, who the producers are, the director of the project, and who the writers are for the project. A lot of the times we as actors might get a casting breakdown. If it's a project we're really interested in, we'll look up past works of the directors or writers and kind of just got a sense of what their style is. So that can be really helpful for the actor. It also is helpful for the agent if they want to reach back out and they have questions. We also have the audition date, and then I have the audition address, so it's our office. You're gonna need a space if you're gonna do them in person. Ideally, it's not just your home. That can be a little bit uncomfortable, especially for young actors. It could be uncomfortable if they're still new to be going to someone's home. So ideally you have some kind of professional space for this. I also have a note here, self-tapes. So I say self-tapes are accepted. If you want to self-tape, if you'd rather self-tape, no problem, but they have to be in. They're due by June 12th at 5 p.m. I also tell them where to send it. Please send all the takes to this email, and I include slating information. Slating is when the actor stands in front of the camera and introduces themselves. So they say, hi, my name is Julian Stambouli, and I'm from Montreal, I'm 5'7", and I'm auditioning for the role of whatever. If you have specific information that you want included in the slate, make sure you put it there so that actors are not guessing. I also include the rehearsal date, which at this point was TBD, and I also include the shooting dates. If they are tentative, you can say, subject to change. If you're not sure within a week when you're shooting, you can say shooting within this week for 1 or 2 days, and then the shooting locations. I just put the city. Now, it's the more that you can give an actor to know that they're actually available for the shoot, the better, because if you all of a sudden switch it up on them and then it becomes a conflict with one of their other gigs, well, then that's just gonna throw a whole bucket of wrenches into your thing. If you want to include any other information, I put a note here, which is basically how this project was financed. It was not private financing, we got a grant. And I sometimes just like to include actors in what they're actually working on and what the potential of it is. Next up is a synopsis. This can be just a couple of paragraphs. We don't go too much into it, but it could even just be one paragraph, a few lines, just explain what the project is, maybe what the tone of the project is. And then finally, on the second page, I have the character descriptions. Now these character descriptions are, I put the name of the character, I put the age range of the character, and then I also put the ethnicity of the character, and that's generally how it goes. If you have a character that needs to be a specific ethnicity, then you can put it there. A Korean character or Spanish character, or in this case, it was important that this character was white, and so we put that there. Otherwise, you can put open to all ethnicities, which is what we did for Jackie, the second character. When it comes to character description, make sure you're putting some background for the character. This is where the actor is going to learn about the intentions, the inner workings of the person. What kind of person are they? Are they short-tempered? Are they traumatized because of something? Are they the class clown? All those kinds of things can help color their performance. What you don't want to put here is just the literal description of what is going to happen in the scene that they're about to watch. Jackie is the main character's best friend. She doesn't see ghosts like the main character does until she does in the bar scene. It's like, that's not helpful at all. That doesn't tell me anything about the character. So make sure you give them a character description and not a plot description. All right, that's the casting breakdown, one of the most important documents when it comes to casting your own film. Moving on! Second, sides, or the scenes. We call them sides in the biz. Here are some sides that I prepared for another project called OK Boomer. We auditioned 2 characters, and I chose the ones from Diane. Now, I'm not gonna show you the full script. When you're choosing your sides for the audition, there's one of 2 ways you can go. Either one, you can write new sides, write a short 1.5-minute scene or something like that, or you can take it directly from the script, which is what we did with OK Boomer. Now, I chose this one because there's a couple interesting things to note. First off, don't send 20 pages for your actor to learn in 2 days. That's unreasonable. In fact, for the first audition, maximum like 4 or 5. If you need 2 scenes in there and they're 2 pages each, like don't send someone 8 pages, when you're sending it out to like 60 actors. You're unfortunately just wasting a lot of people's time and getting their hopes up. So if you can keep it to 3 to 5 pages max, that would be great. If it's a shorter role, you don't need more than a page or 2. Now, here we have 2 scenes for this character. I labeled it Sides Diane, that was the name of the character, and I have start scene 1. I made it very clear where scene 1 starts. I put a lot of description in there, or I kept the description from the script. It's helpful for them to get a sense of what the scene is, so I keep description in there, and it keeps going to the page 2, and then we get to page 3. Now what I've done here is actually crossed out a bunch of the dialogue. I've kept it in there because it might be interesting for them to see what the full scene actually is. But I've crossed it out because that part was not that character talking, and it was unnecessary. There was no reactions needed, so I just said, you know what, don't worry about this part. So then I have end of scene 1. Uh-oh, I'm lost. Where am I? Where's start of scene 2? This is the problem with printing double-sided. Oh yeah! Then I have start of scene 2, and continue over here to end of scene 2. FYI. So what that basically means is that section there is really just meant for them to understand what they're about to react to. Maybe something happened to the character. Maybe the character is talking about something that happened in a previous scene that they need to know context about. You can give them FYI, but they don't need to learn that part. So FYI, and then I say start scene 2. All right, so that's how you prepare sides. All right, we're moving on to reaching out. So first things first is, how do you actually want to get the word out there? What I often do is, because Montreal is a fairly small city, I know the majority of the agents in the city. And so what I'll do is I'll prepare all this stuff. I'll go through their website where you can see all of the actors on the roster, and I'll choose specific ones. And I say, hey, I'll kind of make a template email. Hi there, you know, my name is Julian Stambouli. Bean Duck Productions is working on its new project, we would love to see actor 1 and actor 2 for the role of Diane. And I put them in bold. If you have any suggestions of actors that would be good for this or any of the other roles that you see, please suggest and we'll let you know if we are able to see them. So that way, you tell them who you want to see, but you say, you know what, if you have someone I don't know about yet, send them my way, and if I think they're a fit based off their demo and their headshot, let's see them. So at that point, then you have the back and forth of, yes, this person would love to audition, this person is unavailable on the shooting date, so they won't be committing to the audition, but how about this person? I'd say, hey, that person looks great, let's give them a shot. You've sent them the sides and the casting breakdown along with that initial email, because those are really important for an actor to decide whether or not they want to audition for the project. Now, the second way that you can approach casting a project is by going on to things like Facebook groups that are for casting. You know, there are several here in Montreal, some that are for unions, some that are non-union. So there are ways to do that. I don't love doing that if I can avoid it, because you might get an onslaught of emails, and I don't love sifting through all that stuff. Just get ready, you might get a real mix if you do it that way. But you know, if there's no other way to do it, it's perfectly fine. It just means more sifting. And then starts the real complicated part, which is actually scheduling the auditions, going back and forth with the agents and saying, we're auditioning from 9 to 5 with a break from 12 to 1. These are 15-minute auditions or 20-minute auditions. I think that 10 to 20, depending on the size of the role, is adequate. And that way you can see how many slots you have available for actors. In fact, in that initial email to agents, I say, if your actors are available, please let me know what their availabilities for the day of auditioning are, because then it just stops the whole back and forth when you're dealing with 10 agencies or 12 agencies. You get everyone's availabilities and start to put it together like a puzzle. And if someone says they're available all day, well, then you slot them into little spots you have here and there based off of the availabilities and unavailabilities of everyone else. And then once you're all good to go, you send them all out and you say, see ya Monday. It is the day of the audition. What do you need to prepare in your audition space? Well, first off, you need a waiting area, and that place should ideally be quiet and away from hearing too much of the audition. Actors very rarely like to sit there and listen to the previous person's audition. It might freak them out, it might give them a false sense of bravado, it might affect the choices that they came in with. In that waiting area, I often have the sides printed. Let's say they rushed here from work and they're a bit frazzled and they would love to just kind of prepare by looking at the script again before going in. I usually have a couple of copies of them for all the different roles that we're auditioning, just waiting on a table by the waiting area. I also print out a copy of the sides for the director, for the reader, which we'll get back to, and for whoever else wants one that's involved in the actual audition room. And then finally, you're probably gonna want a camera in your separate room for the audition. You know, we're lucky because we run a self-tape studio at my office, and so we're already set up. We have a camera and 2 lights and a microphone. We also have a monitor that the camera runs to so that the director can watch the audition as they're doing it, but on a screen. I think that's super helpful. Things appear different, subtleties appear different on a screen than from 4 feet away. If that's within your capabilities, that's definitely a plus. So what's happening in the actual audition room is, one, you should have a session director. Now, a session director can be the director, or it can be someone else. And essentially what they're doing is directing the auditions. It's trying to get the best performance out of an actor. You should have a clear idea of what you want from the character, help them to get there, but at the same time, be open to new ideas. A lot of the times, both session directors and actors like it when the first take is just whatever the actor interpreted the scene to be. You come in, you say hellos, you know, make them feel comfortable. Don't just sit there quietly and look up at them and take notes. Let them feel comfortable. You know, this is a friendly environment. And then say, all right, we're ready to see what you interpreted. What did you come up with? And then the next 2 takes are after some tweaks, some feedback, some, hey, let's try something completely different. Maybe an idea just popped into your head because this actor inspired you. What if this character is actually unhinged? You know, who knows? But no matter what, I always encourage session directors to lead with positivity, just like on set when you're directing an actor. If they've finished their take and you cut the tape, you know, if you sit there in silence for 30 seconds collecting your thoughts, you might be like, okay, that was really good. How do I want to try this, whatever. But from their end, they can't read your mind. They're just standing there like, oh my God, the silence is, how bad was I? So, you know, at the end of every take, hey, that was a great take. I love what you did there. I really like what you did with this thing. Let's try something different. Everyone should leave an audition hopefully feeling like they did the best job, and the session director's job is to help them feel that way. The other person you're gonna need in the room with you is a reader. And the reader is the person reading the other lines opposite the actor. Ideally, this reader does not have like a vested interest in maybe trying to get themselves to audition too. You know, ideally it's an actor that's already been cast in the project, or it's a friend who doesn't fit any of the casting criteria and is just there to help, or maybe you've hired them. Whoever they are should give generously to the other performer, should not try to outperform them. They're there to help that actor shine. But this isn't a video on how to read. This is a video on how to cast your own stuff. So let's move on from there. You need a reader. You as a director shouldn't be doing the reading, in my opinion. You should be watching and giving feedback, giving them your whole attention and not the script. Your first day of casting is done. You're exhausted, but you've seen some great talent. You've done callbacks. Oh my God, we're getting close, man. We're getting real close. When it comes time to making your final decisions, I think it's important to look at the cast as a whole. Not necessarily who is the best for every individual role, but who is the best to create an interesting yet cohesive ensemble. And that's why they say a lot of the times, you know, casting is really, you know, it's part performance, but it's also just part everything else that's outside of an actor's control. You know, it could be height, it could be look, it could be hair color, it could be the quality of their voice, it could be so many different things. And I do believe that as filmmakers, yes, we should be looking for the best person for the job, but it's the best person for the job together to make the film what you want it to be. So if you need to print out their headshots and look at them side by side, or just, you know, spend a night watching over and over again all the different auditions, when you eventually narrow it down and you make your choices, it's time to make the offer, which is basically sending an email back to the agents within a few days and say, hi there, we're really excited to offer the role of Gregory to actor. We loved his audition and we would love to have him as part of the project. Here is some information. Let us know if he is on board. They'll get back to you and they'll say, oh, how exciting. Yes, Gregory's very excited and he is reconfirming that he's available those dates. That's awesome. You do that for all of the roles. Once all the roles are cast and everyone's on board, I always do this, and most casting agencies don't. I always reach out to the agencies and thank them all for all of their actors' participation in the auditions and letting them know that sadly they have not been selected to be a part of the project, but you will, you know, keep them in mind in the future for other projects because they did a fantastic job. It's very rare that actors are notified about not receiving a gig. As a filmmaker, I value letting actors know that I appreciated their audition and that they can now let go because we've selected other people. Help them move on. We all just want to move on, don't we? So that's it. That is the casting process as we at Beanduck see it. Casting is one of my favorite parts. of filmmaking. It's really where you get to see finally pieces of this idea come to fruition, and that first rehearsal with your cast is so exciting. That's it, that's all. If I've missed anything or you'd like to know more about something that I spoke about in the video, please leave a comment. If you've enjoyed this, like, comment, share, blah, blah, blah. I hope to see you on the next one, and y'all are the bee's knees. Every last one of you. Oh, I'm wearing yellow, bees! Bee's knees.